Jenna, awesome sense of humor. That's great. Well, good morning. Boy, I'm hot.
Turn it off.
I don't think that's my issue, but we'll turn it off. Well, welcome to the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living. Thank you for coming out today, making it through the quake areas and making it here, so thank you. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, thank you as well for watching today. As we move into this holiday season, and since we are a nation that is to the tune of about 85% Christian, maybe a little more, a lot of people sort of on the merge there, you know, whether they're Christian or not, or just don't go anywhere. I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this sort of series of holidays, because we've got Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, solstice, a lot of things going on. It's surrounding the shortest day of the year. And I'm going to look at things through a different view each week. So today, from a Christian perspective, I'm going to look at the birth of Jesus. And there are two very different accounts of the birth of Jesus in the Christian Gospels. And so today I'm going to look at the account as given in Matthew. And that's a much darker view. It's and this is the one with the wise men and following the star, and they end up at the place where Jesus was born. Next week, I'm going to look at the account as given in Luke, which is a more joyous, happy kind of a thing, and it's got the shepherds and the angels and all the singing and that kind of stuff. So we're going to look at those, and I think that in America today, or I don't think it, I know it, that we've merged the two together. And we've blended these into one kind of a holiday, which is good in a way because they do sort of supplement each other. But I think more importantly, what we've done is we've missed some of the points when we've done that, and we've kind of glossed over, and we've missed some of the meaning behind it. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. Really the whole month is the meaning behind these stories and the myths and what is this story of Jesus and creation. The title of my talk today is Joy. And I'm going to start off by talking about the difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is in the world of effects. Happiness is the material world. That's the world that we live in. Those are things that our Buddhist friends would call temporary. That's our houses, cars, material things is involved with happiness. Joy, on the other hand, is something much deeper, much more within yourself. And when we have true joy, that's permanent. That's there forever. And a classic example, Jenna, when you talked about your 3.5 men surrounding you, and I could just feel the joy in you in that moment. And that, I couldn't have come up with a better definition for joy. So let's just go with that. I experienced joy yesterday and the day before, Friday and Saturday too. The number of people that turned out here. Now, we all had a mess at home. You know, you've got broken stuff all over off the bookshelves, and, you know, everybody's got their own thing. But the number of people that turned out and just showed up here to help clean up, to help decorate, and everything else. And I want to name them. Linda Steiner, Ann Fleming, Phyllis Dalton, Luann Pogue, Michelle Scammon, Norma Hannon, Herb Hancock, Robin Morgan. Bob Corpin was here Friday, helping all the way through. And I probably missed somebody. Forgive me if I did. But I also want to acknowledge the support that we've been given from the lower 48 and the ministers and whatnot. I did a quick count in there where I had 14 emails on Friday night and Saturday from ministers in the lower 48. And I've missed 2. I can only name 12 now. Jeff Staten, Veronica Valle, Alice Reed, Margaret Stortz, Christian Sorensen, Maxine Kay, Cynthia James, Cliff Rubin, Anna Scott, Sharon Remy, Jenny Illig, and of course, Dr. Raz. All reached out. So the amount of support that we have received is truly significant, and it certainly brings joy to me. But there are things that drain joy from our lives. And so how do we stop that drain? I'm going to talk about 3 things that drain joy from our lives: anxiety, resentment, and confusion. First, I'm going to start, though, with the account of the birth of Jesus in the book of Matthew. I found it interesting that Matthew starts out a quarter of the whole story, a fourth of the whole story is full of begats. Who begat who and all of the begats. And I thought, why in the world would they start off with a whole bunch of begats? But it occurred to me later on. It's because the author of Matthew wanted to firmly entrench the concept that Jesus was a Hebrew. Jesus was a Jew, first and foremost. Jesus was a Jew. And not only was Jesus a Jew, he was of royal blood. He was a direct descendant of David. He was a direct descendant of Abraham. And so he spent a quarter of the whole Christmas story, if you will, Jesus' birth story, establishing that lineage and that background to the birth of Jesus. But then it jumps right into the wise men. And they talk about the wise men that came from the east. And I think history pretty well concludes that these are Persians. We got that name Magi would fit in with the thing that these wise men came from the east on a pilgrimage following a star. And they came into the Holy Land. They arrived in Jerusalem. And the first thing they did is kind of ask around, well, hey, we hear that a new king of the Jews has been born. We want to find this guy. Does anybody know where he is? Well, that really caused some anxiety for King Herod, because he thought, well, wait a minute, I'm the king. There was a new king born? Oh, not on my watch. So he gathered these wise men together, and he says, hey, guys, come on over. And why don't you go out and follow that star of yours and find this new king, and then come and tell me about it so I can go worship him too. Yeah, right. That wasn't it at all. So they go back out and they look up and their star comes back and they're all grateful and they continue following their star and they follow the star to this house, and boy, it stops over the house and they go in and sure enough there is Mary with a baby, and the first thing they do is fall down and worship the new king of the Jews, and they present him with gifts of gold and myrrh and frankincense. There wasn't any of the other trappings that we're used to. Those were in the alternate story, that in Luke. Some of the things that were common, and we're going to get back to this idea of anxiety. Certainly, Herod had anxiety, but a lot of other people had anxiety going on around that time too. When anxiety comes in the front door, joy goes out the back. So how do we handle that? We start off with Mary, and for each one of these different drains on joy, I've got a character in this story. First is anxiety, and I choose Mary for that. She really had a lot of anxiety. You can imagine being 13 and pregnant. You know, go up to your mom and say, oh, Mom, by the way, I'm pregnant. First question is going to be, yeah, well, who's the father? Oh, well, it's the Holy Spirit. Yeah, right. Now, who's the Father, young lady? But Mary did something really unique in all that, in that she never wavered, and she never backed down on any of that. She claimed, she knew in the very beginning that this baby was indeed a child of God, that this baby was indeed an expression of God, that this was God on earth. But anxious, I mean, it's a little bitty town. Everybody knew she was pregnant. Everybody knew she was engaged. She'd just been sold. That's the way that was handled in arranged marriages. You bought the gal, and he got a young one at 13. Might have been 14. They're not sure. But Mary had faith all the way through it. And I think that it's good to note that the divine creative force of the universe is conspiring for our good. It's not opposed to us. It's not trying to torture us. It wants us to be happy and fulfilled. And all the way through what Mary faced, she had faith. And I think of that in terms of our spiritual practice of affirmative prayer. And when we pray affirmatively, we know the outcome is already perfect. We know that it's already done. It's not a matter of begging to some far-off deity that may or may not grant a wish or a prayer. We absolutely know that it is already done. In the mind of God and in our mind, it is already done and it is complete. The sacred reading. Linda, you are awesome. You nailed this. Holmes says that prayer is essential to happiness. As we find spirit within, we experience a deeper joy and more abiding peacefulness than we have found anywhere else. Now, you all know that, I mean, it's no secret, we went through a period of trial on Friday, the earthquake. I think everybody probably felt it. If you didn't,
They were here.
Neil.
Down in Homer, they even felt it. Yeah.
Fairbanks.
Yep.
What did that do to everybody? You know, I know for me, that created a sense of anxiety. There was a drain on the peacefulness in my life. The joy departed. I happened to be with Sue Leatherberry, Sue Siegel. Ended up in my little yoga shorts, barefoot out in the middle of a parking lot. We all had stories. But what we can have is faith. We don't know what good may come from this earthquake. Now, obviously on the first pass, this earthquake didn't do a whole lot for the infrastructure of South Central Alaska, for various homes, for a lot of other things. But we're like those 6 blind monks. Maybe we're just looking under the tail of that elephant. There might be a lot more elephant that we don't see. Who knows? Maybe this is a wake-up call. Maybe this is a wake-up call to the state. Maybe it's a wake-up call to each and every one of us to have better earthquake preparedness. What if that was a 7.1 or a 7.2 as they originally stated it was, or a 7.5?
Or 9, which is where all the local ones are.
Well, we get a 9 and it's located underneath Heather Eldred's house. I think that was the epicenter. I'm not sure. But when it's that close, faith. We can have faith, and that faith is demonstrated through prayer. And I asked all the practitioners that could possibly make it here today to come, because I think that this is a perfect day for us to put into action that which we state we believe. When you have anxiety around this, and I still have anxiety, those aftershocks are not my favorite thing. You know, what the first one was just 5 or 6 minutes after it. Sue was already gone. She jumped in and took off. But, you know, and they're going, by the time I finally got home and got another big jolt, boy, the old feeling came right back. Is it going to keep going? But we can pray. So I've asked the practitioners, as many as I can come today, so if you're still feeling those feelings of anxiety, this is a time to pray. This is a time to sit down with a practitioner and know that there's a higher truth, that your greatest good is unfolding for you right now. Not tomorrow, not in last Friday's earthquake. Your highest good is unfolding right here, right now. So Mary was anxious, and she turned to faith and to prayer. Resentment. Now, if there was anybody in this Matthew account of the birth of Jesus that had a right to be filled with resentment, it was Joseph. You can imagine what he felt when he got his new 13-year-old bride and she walked up and said, "Oh, by the way, Joe, I'm pregnant." He wasn't too happy with that. And under the customs of that time, could have easily had her taken out and stoned. Could have had her killed. But he chose not to do that. Now, he didn't step into a big full-blown forgiveness mode right then, but what he did do is he decided that it would be okay to just have a discreet little divorce. Now, in those days, the betrothal was just as cementing as the actual wedding, and in order to break it, the only way you could do that was through what is a divorce. Now, they didn't have divorce then. Then the only way out was in a pine box. But you could break it through a divorce in the engagement period. And that was the route that he was going to go until the angel came down and told Joseph, no, she was not, unfaithful or anything like that. This is the child of God, that this is indeed the Holy Spirit. And then he knew that to be true. And then he went ahead and married her. And for that, he got to be the stepfather of the great way shower. Instead, he chose forgiveness and grace. Well, my question is, who has hurt you deeply? We've all been hurt. We've all been betrayed. We've all been hurt in one way or another. I've shared with you before. I had a really large order when I was at GE. It was a really big lighting order. It would have made a tremendous amount of difference to me personally. And I got swindled out of it. And I held that resentment for years. Who really hurt? I let that resentment drain the joy from my life. So if you're still hanging on to a hurt, somebody has hurt you, think of Joseph and what it took for him to step past that and let it go. The third drain is confusion. When you are confused about life, the joy drains out. At the first Christmas, everybody was confused. Nobody knew really what was going on, except maybe the angels. But I don't think anybody perhaps was confused as much as the wise men, which is a little story I read. It's kind of cute. This isn't a joke, but grandmother had through all of her grandkids as they got older and whatnot, helped set up their nativity scene. And one year, one of the little ones coming up, I think this little one was 6 or 7, came up and said, "Well, Grandma, I can set up the nativity scene this year by myself. I don't need any help." But she said, "No, okay, go ahead." So the little guy is in there setting up the nativity scene and everything, and it got kind of quiet for a while. And she went in, and there the little guy was. He was crying. She says, "Oh, what's the matter?" And he says, "I don't know what to do with the wise guys." See, the wise guys were confused too. You know, but what did they do? The wise men, not the wise guys. I'm going to be calling them the wise guys. The wise men followed their star. They followed the star. That's exactly what we do in our spiritual practice of visioning. So when we're confused and we don't know what to do, we have been given a spiritual practice, a tool to help us deal with that. We can sit down and vision. We get quiet, we meditate, we get grounded, and then we ask ourselves a series of questions. You know, what is Spirit's highest ideal for this project, for my life, for what I'm doing? What's Spirit's highest ideal for peace in my life? And we go through a series of questions that guide us, just like that star, and gets us to a place where we can understand the input of Spirit's highest ideal for us. The wise men did not sit around and wait for all of the details. They didn't wait for the star to come down and tell us that he's going to be in a house. He was in a house in Matthew, not in a manger. They didn't wait for all that. They just followed the star. And then I note in Matthew, they said, and when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. When they were able to follow that star, they were able to embrace that joy. So my takeaway for today, as we move into this holiday season, into this Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa season, allow more joy into your life by avoiding anxiety and having faith. Pray. Avoid resentment by forgiving and treating everyone with grace. See the God in everyone. And eliminate confusion by the use of our spiritual practice of visioning. And so, we're doing something a little different today. Usually at this time, as we go into a time of prayer, I ask the practitioners to stand and hold the congregation in prayer. And today, I think, just going to ask everyone to join me in a deep prayer. A prayer of gratitude. And so it is with this recognition, this awareness of that divine presence within each and every one of us. For each one of us have been born with a budding Christ consciousness. It is that awareness of the divine within each of us that we can recognize that that same divine presence is within all that we do, all that we are, and all that we experience. And so, in spite of the damage, in spite of all of the other things, we can be so grateful in this earth-moving experience. We can know that there is a higher good. There is something great conspiring for our good right here, right now. We know that there is something wonderful blooming within each and every one. And so as we go through this time of life, yes, we embrace happiness. We embrace all of the material things that we have. I am so grateful for heat. I am so grateful for light. But I am even more grateful for each and every one of you. For the love, the peace that is who we are. And so we know that as we face these situations and things in our lives, that behind it all is a capital T truth, and that is that we live in an abundant universe, that we are blessed with magnificent, perfect health, that each one of us has a divine blueprint within us that is perfect. But most of all, we are beings of love. We are all children of God. We are all Christ's in our consciousness. And it is that love, the love of Christ, that pervades our lives. And so we just give thanks. We give thanks to the love of God. And we can now approach our life with poise and confidence, knowing that we are blessed. And so it is.
So it is.